weekly narrative. I guess that's a little redundant because it is the only night we're doing weekly narrative these days. Glad to see you guys back here. We got a bunch of people already in chat. That's a lot of people who have been waiting patiently for a week. And there we go. YouTube just kicked me out, so I don't know what's going on. We got Kizza and Delaney today, ladies and gentlemen. Trio of hosts for you today. Kizza and Delaney, how is it going?
Awesome. How are you, Jeremy?
Doing well. Kizza, what's going on over there in Europe?
I'm doing well in ye old England. Like I said, I got 6 weeks worth of freedom.
Factory shut down for COVID stuff, or what's going on there?
No, this is well, we were going to have the entirety of August off planned, but due to silicon chip shortages, they gave us more time off.
Silicon chips is
lovely.
that's I realized lately I'm waiting for repairs on my truck for my tiny home that I'm building, and there are supply chain shortages on the auto parts side of things too. Actually, the shop owner who's got my truck, he said that he's got about 15 cars in the lot waiting for parts that he can't do anything with because there's shortages there too. So I knew there was a shortage in chips. I had no idea that it was affecting all this other stuff as well. But that's the
Well, I mean, well, you didn't hear this from me, but I do know Land Rover, they've been shut out since around April time.
wow.
So if you're trying to
Oof.
buy a brand new Range Rover, forget it. You're going to be waiting about another 6 months.
Not in the market
Holy
for that
crap.
one yet, but I might be sometime in the future. Let's see.
I'm just warning you as a good consumer.
Anthony and Dari, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the chat. Come on in, grab a drink, get comfortable. Let's jump into some of the quick stories of the day we got to warm it up for the first story of the night to start us off. Let's go to California. We like to monitor California because it's kind of a canary in a coal mine situation. Now, the Dixie Fire, if you guys don't know, California is on fire again because it is fire season. It's peak fire season right now. I know you don't get a lot of these over in England, but in America, we like to start fires. And the biggest one right now, as far as I'm aware, is burning in California. It's called the Dixie Fire, and I want to give you guys just a quick update on where that is right now, currently burning 208,000 acres and is only 23% contained. Now, I'm curious, Delaney, is it kind of like last year where there was red haze in the sky and you had the Blade Runner effect and everything's kind of hazy and it smells terrible all the time? What's the status over there? Can you tell?
No, honestly, I'm still in Sacramento. I can't really tell that it's, there's a fire going on. I mean, it does, there is just like yesterday, there was like a little bit of smoke in the air, but before that, I know this fire's been going on for a while. Before that, it was clear, beautiful, hot as heck, but yeah, no really signs of fire until just yesterday.
Chloe Malvo in YouTube chat says the natural state of California is to be on fire. And I don't,
Yep.
that's not irony either. That is true. I mean, it's supposed to burn. It's natural for these things to burn on a yearly basis or so. But anyway,
Or
go ahead, Giza.
I was just going to say, or maybe this is God's way to say Californians have committed many, many sins.
Yeah, no, I think
Just a
Little,
thought.
little bit.
I prefer that explanation, but the rationalist in me, I have to go with the natural ebbs and flows. They said there's 5,000 firefighters battling that fire right now. 5,000 firefighters, and it's only 23% contained. So anyway, thought that was a nice little update on that for you guys there.
Yep.
We're going to get into some more
That's
details
outrageous.
about how the rest of the West is really drying up. And as the title of the stream says, the West is drying up. That's metaphorical or analogous. I don't know if that's an analogy or a metaphor. Either way, the society is drying up, but also the West in America is drying up as well. We'll get to that in our next segment. Let's go to Texas for our next quick story of the night to get us warmed up. This one's going to be fun. A community in Highland Park, which is one of the richest areas in Texas, mostly Democrat parents. They got a letter from local Black Lives Matter chapter regarding the kids and their enrollment in colleges. So let's take a gander of what's going on here. What Black Lives Matter wants these rich white families to do with their kids in regards to applying for colleges. Hello, dear Mrs. Whatever. We're writing to you because we understand you are white and live within the Highland Park Independent School District and thus benefit from enormous privileges taken at the expense of communities of color. You live in the whitest and wealthiest neighborhood in Dallas. Whether you know it or not, you earned or inherited your money through oppressing people of color.
Wow.
However, it is also our understanding that you are a Democrat and supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, which makes you one of the white allies and puts you in a position to help correct these cruel injustices. We need you to step up and back up your words with action and truly sacrifice to make our segregated city more just. I like how that kind of led in with the guilt. And they said, you're guilty, you're white, you're terrible, you got privilege. And they say, but you are a Democrat, and you said you support Black Lives Matter, so...
Mm-hmm. We stalked your Instagram, and we know that you support Black Lives Matter. You posted a black square.
Yeah, I don't know how they know this information, but maybe there's mailing lists available. I'm sure the voter registrations are publicly available somewhere. Anyway, they continue on with their request. We are asking you to pledge that your children will not apply or attend any Ivy League school or U.S. News and World Report Top 50 school. If you do not have children under 18, then we ask you to pledge to hold your white privileged friends, family, and neighbors with children to the standard. These schools have afforded white families privilege for generations. Having your children attend these schools takes away spaces from students of color who really need the job opportunities, education, and influence that these schools provide. We know this.
So bad.
I got a question.
Yeah,
I got a question. Is white no longer a color now?
Nope.
I don't think so. No.
I mean, all I can say
no.
is, last I checked, black is just a shade.
Right.
So is white. White is a shade as well.
Or is white all the colors at the same time?
Technically.
Yes. Technically, yes. But they don't want to
So
admit that.
So does that mean white people are the super people of color?
We are all colors in one. Maybe that's why they're so jealous. That's where the privilege comes from. Maybe that's where the privilege comes from. We are all colors in one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just find this hilarious. This whole subject of white privilege. I mean, can I please see this white privilege, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to see it too.
Yeah. I mean, if it's that good, surely everyone would be calling themselves white, and therefore everyone would get white privilege. Or have I missed something?
You would think if there was truly an incentive to being white, then everybody would be fighting to be claiming to be white. You know what I'm saying? But there's no incentives for being white. The incentives are all on the other side of the scale, where no schools, none of these schools that they're mentioning in here are going to say, "Oh, you're white." Yeah, no, we have to get more white people in here. No, they are saying, "You're black, or you're Mexican, or whatever." Mexican's not a race, but you know what I'm saying. They're going to
indigenous.
Latinx.
They're going to give
Latinx.
Latinx. Yes, correct. Thank you for correcting that. They get advantages in hiring and enrollment and test score requirements and things like that. So there is no incentive to claim whiteness, and that's how you know that there is no such thing as white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will say that, Jeremy, there is a few privileges I'll gladly trade white privilege for, but I'm not sure if it's going to be too spicy.
You know what? Let's just give it a shot.
Let's see here. I would love black privilege so I can drop M-bombs whenever I feel like it and not get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I like Asian privilege, so therefore I gain 20 points in IQ.
That is quite the privilege.
And I'd like Jewish privilege, in which case I have an overrepresentation in power in politics, media, and banking.
Okay, I think we've hit all the big ones here. Nobody can complain that we don't address those issues anymore in the YouTube chat.
So, what does the chat reckon? Do they agree with me or disagree with me?
Because we're getting a little bit of echo from, I think, it's your phone or your speakers. Maybe if you could turn the volume down just a teeny bit. I don't think anybody else can hear it.
I do apologize.
I'm an audio file, so.
Put on some headphones.
Anyway,
I got headphones on.
I think what's funny about this...
How dare you?
Is this paragraph where they're telling the kids not to apply to these schools because they want the slots to be taken for their children so that they can get the job opportunities, the education and influence that these schools provide. The influence that these schools provide doesn't come from the namesake in and of itself. It comes from the fact that over many, many years, decades, very intelligent and proven, skilled and intelligent people have come out of those schools that have given that school its reputation. Now, if they start pumping out stupid people, that school will no longer have the influence and the educational quality that it has in the past. I think it's funny that they think that all they have to do is have that school name on their record, and then all of a sudden they have the influence and the education and the intelligence that comes with that track record, which obviously is not the case. But again, you don't get in Black Lives Matter or claim to be part of Black Lives Matter if you are of high IQ anyway. So this really does fall in line with exactly what you would expect these people to say.
Yeah, well, and I just think it's sad that these people that run Black Lives Matter, they wouldn't encourage the Black and brown people to apply for HBCUs, because, you know, we do have historic Black college and universities that they could apply to and probably get in because they're Black and brown. So instead of discouraging white people from going to the schools that they want to, that they can get into, why not encourage your people of your socioeconomic, or if you want to be racist, skin color background, to go to the schools where they will accept you because you know you have a certain shade of skin.
Or maybe, Delaney and Jeremy, maybe these people are infected with white supremacy, and therefore they think those colleges which are full of non-whites are frankly inferior. Just a thought.
Yeah.
There you go. Could also be it. Let's see. The schools are losing their reputation already. Yes. Most of the chat seems to agree with you.
Oh, nice.
You got Bill. What's up, Bill? In the chat, almost one. He had Aiden Paladin on earlier today. It was a pretty good stream. I don't know how you got her, but good work on that. Let's see. Bill's had her, I think, 3 times in a week? Yeah, no, she definitely seems to be.
And normally Aiden's very
streaming.
busy. Well, I've been on stream with Aiden once, so that was good fun.
Chloe says, how about don't waste your money on a school that's made for networking with other rich families? Why invest in the overinflated social capital of Ivy League schools? Then they complain that they are $200,000 in college debt. Yeah, exactly. They don't think about the implications because they don't have the ability to think far into the future. They only live by their immediate gut feelings and instincts and inability to delay gratification. But with that said, let's jump to the next quick story. Speaking of inability to delay gratification, let's go to San Francisco, where they are proposing spending $500,000 on prototype trash cans because the homeless problem is so bad there that they have to design space-age, highly advanced technological trash cans to prevent the homeless people from vandalizing them, stealing objects out of them, and destroying them. Now, I don't know if you've ever lived in a big city in California, but if you do, it's a regular occurrence to see homeless people digging through trash. They will circumvent locking mechanisms that are in place on the trash cans. Usually the trash cans are like inside of a metal box or some other kind of security mechanism, and they'll find ways around that. So I think at the end of the day, this is going to be fruitless, but let's take a look and see what they're proposing here. From KTVU.com, San Francisco is working on a plan to replace the city's public trash cans. Prototypes they're looking at testing will cost in the neighborhood of $20,000 apiece. Well, that's the price for the prototypes. The Department of Public Works said the actual units to order to replace some 3,000 trash cans will be much less. The department said the current trash cans, especially the green conventional trash cans, are frequently targeted by people looking for valuables inside who break locks, damage the hinges, and scatter trash everywhere in the process. It happens a lot more than you think it would.
Jesus. I don't see that shit here, and I live in a small town, but it does have a very big homeless problem.
The Department of Public Works hopes a $537,000 pilot program will find the perfect trash receptacle that can prevent tampering, vandalism, and can incorporate recycling bins and high-tech innovations like an automatic notification system when trash inside needs to be picked up. City officials said the prototypes
Wow.
did not reflect the actual expected cost of the cans. They're hoping the cans are going to cost $3,000 to $4,000 a piece, and they're going to order 3,000 of them. So I thought this was fun because you have to. It begs the question: this amount of spending and planning and energy and resources that goes into building trash cans, is it necessary if you can manage a city properly in the first place?
Yeah, well, my question is the trash can going to prevent, the homeless people from pooping and peeing on the streets? Because that seems to be the bigger problem in San Francisco.
No, I don't think so. If anything, they're going to use the trash cans to do that into.
Yeah, right? They're just going to get destroyed
Yeah.
anyways.
I mean, 20 grand on a trash can. I mean, Jesus Christ, how much money do these people think they're living in Dubai or something, where they have money just to throw around like that?
San Francisco is
No,
basically Dubai because of all the tech companies that just pour free money into the system.
No, but like Dubai, they'll literally just throw money at something utterly ridiculous because they can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it's approaching that
Right.
levels, but you don't get nearly the productivity or the actual performance out of the objects as you would in Dubai.
Right.
Well, that's
yeah.
true. But that's because I would argue they have more money than sense.
Yes,
But that's just me.
they sure do. Let's
Speaking of,
oh, good.
sorry, I was just going to say, slightly off topic. Did you guys hear about Dubai creating artificial rain to combat their 122 degrees Fahrenheit rain?
I did. I heard about that.
Yeah. Dare I say, Alex Jones was right.
Yeah, I think what the process is seeding the air with particles that can accumulate water vapor on them or something like that. Is that basically what they're looking to do?
Yeah, by the sounds of it, sounds like similar to the type of weather technology I heard about they were experimenting with during the time of Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I've heard about that, but I mean, my uncle was in the military, and when he was stationed overseas, he told me that in a lot of these countries they have like indoor ski slopes because it's so hot outside they don't get snow, but they've created indoor ski slopes for people that want to go skiing in the middle of summer in, Abu Dhabi
Yeah.
or Dubai or wherever the money is. They just have indoor ski slopes. So it doesn't surprise me that these guys are able to create artificial rain to combat the 120 degree summers.
I mean, if you could have an ice rink, if you have an indoor ice rink, it's very easy to create a ski slope. You just need a
Yep.
huge amount of space and a good amount at a very tall building.
Yep.
Yeah, I think people are sleeping on the Middle East, man. They got a lot of money. They're very technologically advanced. Their cities are actually, well, you can debate the functionality of the city of Dubai itself, but they are beautiful and very advanced, and I think they're going to be a strong competitor coming up here. I mean, anybody that can
Oh,
make
yeah.
it on
Well,
the sea slope in the desert is a contender. If they can get off the oil money.
They're doing that right now. They're heavily investing in buying out loads of shares and capital into renewable energy. So they're shifting focus. But when you have what I call "fuck you" money, you could basically do whatever the hell you like.
Yep,
Hell yeah.
that's
I
right.
mean,
Let
if you want
that
to build
money
a
flow.
if you want to build a metropolis in the middle of the desert, go right ahead. But one advantage they have is because they're starting from a complete clean slate, they can go like 10, 20 years ahead of what we can do because we're still relying on old tech from like the first industrial revolution. So there are some problems when you are the first to something.
Yeah, they're also investing highly in a railroad right now. I just watched a short mini documentary on that. They're building railroads across, I believe, across Africa and across the entire Middle East as well to basically lock down Africa as their own economic kind of zone that they have control over, along with China. So they're coming up. They're coming up in the world.
I mean, me personally, I love to see China just bankrupt themselves funding Africa, but that's just me because I'm evil.
It's very possible. Yeah, Lizzie in chat says for that much money, the trash should pick itself up. You would think for $4 grand a
Right?
pop,
Yes.
you could make a robot that would just run around and pick it up. Yeah. But then the
Right.
robots.
Oh, better yet,
looks-
just build. Sorry to interrupt. Build an entire army of Wallies to clean the trash.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Why can't? I mean, we
Elon
have.
Musk, get on it.
I've had like been at hotels where they deliver your room service in a robot. So why can't they do something like that for the trash in San Francisco?
Let's jump to.
Speaking of robots, actually. Sorry,
Oh,
Jeremy.
good. We got stereo comments. That's all.
Uh,
We'll get to those right after.
uh, yeah, sure thing. I was just going to say, it reminds me of when a store employed a robot to help customers and ended up being fired for scaring customers away.
The Sacramento basketball stadium had a robot outside that would kind of roll around and just offer like directory services, like, hey, this is where the McDonald's is, or whatever. And I saw it in use one time in 3 years, and then after that, it was just plugged in, sitting there doing nothing forever. So I don't, I think in theory these things sound nice, but they never actually get executed very well. We're still in the beta phase of getting robots in the workforce, I think, as far as ones that move around and do stuff anyway. Let's go to Paul in stereo.
California trying to reinvent the trash can. Completely pointless. The whole state's trash.
Yep.
Very
It
true.
is.
Well said, sir.
Very true.
Osis from San Francisco, so maybe he's got an insight into this.
Yeah, my buddy told me about this. I didn't even know because I don't watch the news because it's all propaganda. But it sounds to me like it's a scam. They're just going to skim money off of this program, line the pockets of their friends, just like they always do. They don't need fucking cans like this. They're just going to get broken anyway.
Yep.
And honestly, it's not the bums that go through your garbage. It's fucking third worlders that come in and they steal your recycling.
Yep.
Of course, that goes to China and they don't even recycle it. It just gets thrown into the ocean or whatever. But
Or a burn
the
pile.
homeless people, the real homeless people, are too crazy to break anything. They don't have the wherewithal. So, yeah, this is a scam for sure. It is always something. Somebody's gonna get a no bid contract on this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything I've seen with these kind of programs in California ends up being a money siphon somehow, and I only lived there for like 3 years. So I wasn't paying attention that hard. That's how obvious that kind of stuff is. But speaking of other failed cities and trash, let's jump to Minneapolis. Minneapolis, we got our last quick story of the day to warm up with. This is another fun one. A pro-riot business owner now wants police to find his stolen van. This is from alphanewsminneapolis.com. A pro-BLM business owner who cheered on rioters as they torched his own restaurant now wants people to call the police if they find whoever stole his van, which was last sighted at George Floyd Square. The comedy writes itself here. A restaurant that cheered rioters who burned its building down during the George Floyd riots now complains that Minneapolis has too much crime after being victimized yet again. So the store owner literally said, "Let my building burn," as the protests were happening last summer. And he said, "Justice needs to be served. Put these officers in jail," he was quoted as saying on Facebook. And his daughter, Hafsa Islam, with the last name of Islam, you can kind of guess the nationality and ethnicity, etc., she penned an op-ed for the Washington Post praising those who torched their restaurant. She said, "For years, protesters tried peace. It didn't work. If this is what it takes to get justice, then it will all be worth it." However, the family has changed his tune after a night of riots turned into a year of crime. Since losing his last restaurant, Islam has opened a new establishment called Curry in a Hurry. After the last several days, thieves have stolen his catering van full of newly purchased supplies, and his building was burglarized, resulting in loss of $500 from his cash register. And now he's going to the police for help. He says, quote, "My question is, why did this have to happen? Why are we in a first world country and have to face this here? There's something wrong." Islam complained to Fox 9, which provided sympathetic coverage. So this guy's in the beginning stages of what we call being red-pilled.
Yeah, he is kind of a little bit. I mean,
Is
you
it
kind of
red-pilling,
told
though?
you kind of told them to come and like destroy your property. So if so facto Columbo Oreo, you kind of got what's coming to you, buddy.
Well, the red pill I'm referring to is kind of the state of the socioeconomics there in Minneapolis, and then probably I think we can all guess the particular group of people who stole this car. Probably not white people. Let's just, we can say that, I think, with confidence. So when he says to himself, why did this have to happen? Why are we in a first world country have to face this? Well, yeah, see, you don't understand how cities work in America, Mr. Islam, okay? Cities are run by Democrats, and they allow this stuff to happen freely because of people like you who use social media, cry about it, and they encourage this kind of stuff to happen in the first place. So, that's, hopefully he can understand how he helped cause this and who is actually doing it.
Yeah, it's almost like the old saying is true. To prove an idea is a bad idea is to make people victims of said idea.
There you go. Or be careful what you ask for. Also applies here.
Yeah.
Same general
Very
message.
true, very true. But apparently it's been sociopathic to make those victims of what they espouse.
See, this is actually, I like this story because it follows, or at least demonstrates, my philosophy that I'm coming to be deeper rooted into in life. As I get older, I am no longer really interested in convincing people, trying to debate people, trying to change people's minds. I like watching people learn the hard way, because really that's the only way they're going to learn something for real. So after Curry in a hurry and this guy Islam gets his car stolen and the cops aren't going to do absolutely nothing about it, they're not going to find the guys, they're not going to even care about his case, they're not going to look into it, they're not going to put a detective onto it, he might realize, hey, maybe I do need a little more protection if I'm going to own and operate a business here. Like in San Francisco, where we saw all the Walgreens, they had to shut down like a dozen Walgreens in San Francisco because they kept getting stolen from. They couldn't even maintain business due to the crime. This is kind of the same thing. This guy will learn, and slowly over time, probably vote Republican or leave the city altogether. Who knows?
Yeah, he's going to leave the city after all this. Like, I mean, his business got burned down. He probably rebuilt, got an insurance payout, rebuilt, invigorated himself to own a business, bought himself a nice catering van, and then that got stolen. So he's going to leave. If he was smart, he would leave that city.
This is
question.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Question. I thought insurance companies didn't pay their insurance to businesses if they were victims of riots.
Yep, they did not. My mom actually told me that. She's like, yeah, insurance companies don't cover riots, but I'm sure he got something. Like, I don't know what he got. Probably got PPE or something.
No, because there was
PPP.
So yeah, because I know there was that quote from I believe it was in Chicago. That woman said, "Oh, looting is repatriations."
right.
People
Yep.
tried using the insurance argument, and people point out, no, they don't get insured for rioting.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
why do you care about property over people? That was their argument, right? So we can destroy property all we want because you're hurting people.
Coming
with
from
our-
the group of people who support an ideology which murdered over 100 million people in the past 100 and so years.
Yep,
Their brains
exactly.
aren't capable of holding that time frame in consciousness. But this is a funny part to end out the article here. It says, Islam's catering vehicle has been sighted at Lake Street and 38th Avenue, the George Floyd Autonomous Zone. This area has been effectively off limits to police since Floyd died there over a year ago, and protesters have maintained various sites of barricades and guard checkpoints, keeping emergency services, most media, and members of the public out. So his van was seen in an area where people were intentionally trying to keep police out of, and now he's calling the police to try and find it. This is
So wait,
entertaining.
does that technically mean that's a third autonomous zone now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. This is the third one. It doesn't get as much attention,
So-
but it's out there.
So,
Yeah,
when does
people have died in this autonomous zone as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, unless I'm mistaken, wasn't Chaz recorded to have a murder rate 50 times higher than Chicago?
I don't know, but I think there were at least 3 or 4 people that did get murdered in Chaz. Yeah.
And
Yes, but I think
there's all kinds of sexual assaults and rapes and all kinds of crime going on in Chaz. Deaths, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all-
Representative of their ideal society, I would say.
So we can scientifically prove that communism turns places into crime-ridden third world regressive shitholes.
That's why I love seeing these autonomous zones, because and I said it, you can go back to the footage when the Chaz popped up. We talked about it on the stream. We said specifically, this is great because now we can see what they really want to have happen, and it's exactly what we all thought would happen, which is an absolute total garbage fire, dumpster fire.
Speaking of Chaz, though, do you know what did make me laugh most of all about Chaz?
What's that?
They had border control tighter than the southern border, all with people with very big guns demanding identification.
Yeah, no, the irony is strong.
Sorry to interrupt, but just for context, for people who might be listening to and don't understand what I'm talking about, these are the same people who are against voter ID laws because they're racist, against gun ownership because Second Amendment bad.
Yes.
And support open borders.
But when it comes to their borders, they want privacy. They want strict regulation. But when it comes to our borders of America and around the world, no, we should just let anybody in. It's fine, because they want people. They want to recruit people for their autonomous zones. Who else is going to join their stupid ideas if not migrants that don't know any better?
Well, I got two solutions for this. One, we should embrace Kizzerism. Shameless plug. Or two, the rest of America borders itself out from the autonomous zones and cut off all power and resources from them.
Well, see, I actually, if you think about what I try to advocate for on this channel, which is parallel societies, going off grid, doing your own thing, I'm advocating for the exact same thing that the Chaz people are doing. It's just that my execution versus their execution, because they're mentally ill, they had no parents, they don't know anything about the real world, they never interact with it, they never use their hands, things like that. Of course, it's always going to end up bad. But yeah, I agree with you, man. This is exactly what we should be encouraging. We should be encouraging everyone to leave society, form their own little communities, whether you're going to be a commune or whatever it is, and then let the strong survive. Let's get back to some natural selection. Let's get back to natural law. Get them off the grid and get them off all these safety nets, and let's see who really can make it.
Take away their iPhones.
That too.
I mean, honestly, this entire thing makes me laugh at why I can't take any form of anarchist seriously. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. If you're still living within a society, you are not an anarchist. Unless you completely go off-grid and live like a Zulu or live on a stateless island, you are not an anarchist. And if you do that and survive, fair credit. Until that time, you are filthy status.
Most of the people that are like for anarcho-communism or whatever, they're usually these malnourished, maladapted men and women that wouldn't be able to light a fire in the wild if their life depended on it. So I don't think that they're actually for what they really want.
No form of anarchism is possible in a city unless you have total collapse, Mad Max situation. Otherwise, you are in this exact same situation that the Chaz people were at, or the George Floyd Square people are at, where you have to beg, people to supply you with money so that you can buy supplies. You can't farm. Did you see the pictures of the farm they tried to start? It was hilarious.
Yes.
Oh God, yeah.
And
pure Lysenkoism in action, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
And then I think didn't they have a sign? Didn't they have a sign in front of the farm saying this is for Black and Indigenous people only? So white people, you're not allowed to do anything. Let the Black and Indigenous people take care of it.
Yeah. I mean, what I find funny is even though I'm a city-dwelling folk, I actually know how to do some farming.
Hell yeah.
Unlike these cretins, and Jesus Christ, the amount of mistakes they made.
Well, I think their first mistake was planting dirt on a piece of cardboard and expecting the plant to root through the cardboard. That's probably a good correction to make on day one right there. But anyway, let's
Well, there's that as well.
Let's jump to Paul and Stereo, and then we'll get started on our main segments of the night.
If you didn't see this tweet, it's too good not to share. Courtesy Michael Malice, of course. Free troll. Ask your Facebook friend, do you think January 6th would have happened if Kyle Rittenhouse had been there to defend the Capitol?
That is a good question. Well, actually, even better, would January 6th happen if there was rooftop Koreans?
Ooh.
Or would January 6th have happened if the FBI wasn't involved? Ooh, that is what we call foreshadowing, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a segment coming up right after this next one that we will be talking about that exact potentiality. But first, I want to talk a little bit about about water. Let's talk about water. I know, we're talking about survival and things here.
H2O.
I like water. I'm drinking water right now. I think it's important to pay attention to water, where it's coming from, what it's doing for us, like generating electricity and whatnot. So I want to quickly cover the status of the West right now. The West being the western side of America and the dire situation that it is in. From CNN.com, we're going to Lake Powell. First, Lake Powell, which is a lake that I've visited with my family. Very beautiful. One of the feeding reservoirs into the Grand Canyon. CNN says that in the first sentence, they can't even wait. They literally just can't hold themselves back. Plagued by climate change-fueled drought, they say, and increasing demand for water, Lake Powell, the second largest reservoir in the United States, has fallen to its lowest level on record since it was filled more than 50 years ago. As of Sunday, Lake Powell had fallen to roughly 3,500 feet in elevation, which doesn't mean anything for us, but 33% of capacity is much more meaningful, which is where they are at, according to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. So it is at the lowest level it's ever been that we've recorded. So
That's bad.
Pretty bad.
I have a solution. I have a solution to this.
What do we do?
Every single person who lives near the lake should publicly urinate in the lake to save the lake.
Where do they get the water to urinate with, though?
You naturally create water in your system, so do it. Just pee in the lake.
Just pee
Whatever
in
you
the
do
lake.
to convert, just pee in the lake.
Problem
just do
solved.
it. Do it. Do it to save the lake.
Problem solved. So
And this is why I need to be in charge, ladies and gentlemen.
I was gonna say everybody who lives near the lake needs to get their hose and run their hose into the lake. Oh wait, the lake
There
is
you go.
probably giving them water, so
well, these are
Never
probably-
mind on that
these are-
idea.
These are the types of solutions that the communists would try if they set up camp at Lake Powell. This is the kind of
Ooh,
this is the
actually-
caliber they would try.
Actually, I got another solution. A bit mental here. What if you take the Pacific Ocean, convert giant oil lorries, fill them up with water, drive them to the lake, and unload them into the lake? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
It is in the middle of nowhere, but you know what? Lake Oroville was a little bit closer to society, and this is a lake in California. This is one that we talked about a couple weeks back. California's drought drying up Lake Oroville, shutting down power plant at wildfire season peak. So this isn't just a reservoir that does nothing at all. They use it to generate hydroelectric, which if you're paying attention, you know that California went through rolling power outages because their power supply from Oregon got cut a couple weeks back. So they are definitely short on electricity. But anyway, when it's full, the lake sits around 900 feet, but the water levels have been dropping fast in recent weeks. Now it's down to 655 feet. The record low was back in 1977, which is only about 12 feet from there. And California really doesn't have any water as it is. So when you can't use it for electric, you know what? I bet they're still using the water to water the almond trees, though, because if there's one thing that California will never give up, it's the damn almond trees, which of course are insanely inefficient when it comes to their water consumption.
well, how else are the soy boy non-milk drinking people going to get their almond milk if there's no almonds for them to harvest?
It's true. Most of the world's almonds come from
Maybe they should
California.
just change their diet.
What'd you say, kids?
Maybe they should just change their diet. Just a thought.
I mean, I agree, but they can't consume milk because it's just so inhumane how they treat the cows.
Okay. I got a solution then. No cow's going to be harmed in this. Suck on your mother's breast.
There you go.
Last but not least in our water visit across the West, we're going to Lake Folsom, which is one that I used to live nearby. The water level is so low there that there are artifacts and ruins emerging to the surface that have not been visible since the 1950s, before the dam was built. State park rangers are asking people to leave the historic artifacts that are now emerging from Folsom Lake bed alone. With the water level so low, the ruins and artifacts are starting to surface. They're facing up to $250,000 fines for taking artifacts from the lake. Ladies and gentlemen, the West is literally drying up, and all the tax money in the world in California can't refill your fresh water supply, it seems. If I were them, I'd be working on desalination plants.
Yeah, I was gonna say desalination plants, or we need to find a virgin and throw her in a volcano and sacrifice somebody to the gods to get some damn rain up in here.
Whatever it takes. I mean,
Interesting call.
the urination station. Thank you, Caitlin.
I do have one question though.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you run out of water if you are right next to a giant ocean?
Well, that's why you
we
need
don't have any
desalination plants.
Yeah, we don't have it. I think we maybe have like a couple of desalination plants here in California, and guess where they're all located? SoCal, not up here.
Yeah.
Because SoCal doesn't have as many natural lakes and rivers like we do up in Northern California. We literally send our water down to them. That's why we are in such a huge water crisis, because all the water that could be spent for us up here, where our government is, really like this in the capital, there's lots of people. We send it down to SoCal because there's like millions more people down there than there are
Dubai
here.
has desalination. Thank you, Bill, for that.
And yeah,
that's true. So we're not Dubai status yet. If we had desalination plants, we might be somewhat Dubai status. But think about what's been happening in California. They've shut down nuclear power plants, and they get rolling blackouts for power.
Idiots.
They are one of the biggest agricultural centers in the country. They provide a lot of the food to the country. People don't realize how much farmland is in California. I advise everyone to drive through at least once. It is astonishing. And all that water comes from no natural sources. It comes from dams. It has to be imported because there's no rainfall. Sacramento Valley is one of the driest places I've ever lived. And I've lived in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, it doesn't really get much drier. And so they have no water. They have no energy. They have no desalination. They're not planning for the future with desalination plants. They're importing a bunch of immigrants to destroy the economy. They got trash cans for $20,000. Just look at all the things that are happening. And again, I'd ask the question that we went back to with the trash cans. Is it a state that's well managed? Does it seem like they are planning for the future? I would say no, but they lecture the rest of the country on how things should be run. And I think that's awfully ironic.
it is. Yeah, you're right about that, Jeremy. There is no forward-thinking plan when it comes to figuring out our water crisis. And then if you do bring up desalination plants, if you do bring up nuclear energy, you bring up any like alternatives that are really like good alternatives, all of the environmentalists and all the crazies that live here shut you down because of, oh, it's bad for the ecosystem, or, oh, it's, this or that. And they just come up with ridiculous ideas or just counter arguments that make no sense.
That's because they don't want answers. They just want to scream.
Yeah, they do.
But on the subject of California and energy, it does remind me of a very particular TED talk by Michael Spellenberger, I believe his name is. I'm not sure if you two have ever watched that TED talk.
Michael Schellenberg?
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
sorry, forgive me
him.
for. Yeah, his TED talk on nuclear power versus green energy pretty much sums up, utterly destroys the green agenda to the point where almost nobody should be even given a damn about green energy. It'll fix everything.
I discovered him a few years back, and I love his ideas, and he's one of the people that I look to when it comes to nuclear power and the idea of it, because he makes some very, very good arguments for it. But of course, people are like, they hear nuclear and they think, oh, Chernobyl, oh, Fukushima, oh, these nuclear catastrophes that happened, but they don't even do any research into Chernobyl and why it happened. They just think, oh, that's going to happen to us.
Yeah, ignoring the fact that Chernobyl was in charge by communist Russia, and to my knowledge, I think less than 100 people technically died from it.
I think it was only actually about 20 people that died in Chernobyl due to Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Like,
directly from it. That's directly from it, and maybe like a couple of hundred indirectly from it, from like future nuclear radiation and poisoning and stuff like that. But then people bring up Fukushima. Hold on, that was a 50-year-old reactor, and it had the leak because of an earthquake.
Yep.
And 0 people died. 0 people died.
But it had a meltdown, so that's what all that matters is the meltdown happened.
Well, yeah.
Except that was due to human error and an earthquake.
Yeah, they don't understand these new nuclear power plants, the Gen 4s and whatnot. They don't even. I think they are not meltdown proof, but meltdown resistant.
Well. Speaking of Gen 4, one thing I did hear, which if someone does pull this off, they're going to have their names in the history books for life. I do remember reading a few years back, there is potential for a Gen 4 reactor to run on nuclear waste.
Yeah, I think that's
Now,
one of them.
if someone pulls that off, guess what? Energy is effectively free, just like Nikola
Yep.
Tesla wanted.
Yeah, we're pretty much
You literally
done.
have next to no energy bills.
Dari
You
brings
have a
up a good
completely
point.
self-sufficient system.
Yeah, that's exactly
Sorry,
what
yeah,
they don't
sorry.
want. They don't want self-sufficiency. That's what Dari's pointing out in the YouTube chat. He says they don't want
Yeah.
you to allow for growth. They want everyone to be dependent on them. So of course they're not going to
fuck.
stimulate the economy to create independence for water, create independence for energy, create independence for economic reasons.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love hydroelectric if you have the geographical location to pull it off. Same with geothermal. I love that if you have the geographical location. But them two are highly dependent on geographical location. That's why in like certain places in America, hydroelectric's wonderful. In Iceland, geothermal is perfect. But for most places, both them two cannot be done. Which is why nuclear is the best all-round option.
California, that has 2 inches of annual rainfall, probably not the best spot to do hydroelectric.
Well, exactly. I did say geography is very important for both of those.
Yep.
Let's see.
Like UK, yeah, we have tons of rain, but we don't have a giant river to do a hydroelectric system.
There's a little bit of rubbing sounds coming from your mic, Kizza. I don't know if there's
Sorry,
movement on your
I think
end.
it's just a bit of wind. Hold on.
There you
No,
go.
it's just a bit of wind. Hold on.
They'll use
myself
health,
for a bit.
environmental, and economic reasons not to do something that would improve the quality of life for the masses. Yes, sir. Prudent Patriot, hello, what's going on? I think that's Jeff. Bill says, power, divide, and conquer. Our government's more worried about running the world and extracting its wealth. Yes. Extracting wealth and keeping us in control rather than letting us flourish and create solutions to these problems. Let's go to Bill, Paul and Osis in the stereo, and then we'll jump to our next section here.
California is way, way too smart to use, net carbon zero energy source like nuclear power to power desalination plants with the biggest coastal surface area of any state in America. Bigger in Texas, maybe smaller than Florida because it's dick shaped, so there's 2 sides to it. But yeah, no, California is they got this. They don't even.
Yeah.
They're smarter than you.
Oh yeah, they got it down.
Yeah, totally. We are smarter than everybody. Yeah, that's right. That's why we have our lakes and rivers are drying up. They're so smart.
Yeah, we're running out of water being next to an ocean. Good job.
Yep.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Geniuses.
Hell, I don't. Yeah, hey, I'm landlocked and I don't run out of water.
Osis.
Here's the thing: if you keep California in crisis, you can do things that are stupid, and people will be like, "Oh my God, please come save us." So they're going to keep us in perpetual crisis, just so that they can do whatever they want, and people will go along with it. And they want to push the climate change narrative. So, if it gets if the water dries up, who gives a shit? We need to spend $8 trillion on fucking desalination or whatever it is they decide to do. Probably import more third worlders to pick their fruit or whatever. But that's they don't want to solve the problem. It's just like the homeless in San Francisco. I told you we spend $250 million a year on it. Solving the problem does not get them what they want. Not solving the problem does.
Yep.
That's exactly right. They're incentivized to maintain the problem and keep it in existence.
Exactly. Yeah, it's bad over here. And California used to be the epicenter of innovation and what every state tried to strive to be, and now it's like, do you guys really want to strive to be California right now? No, I wouldn't.
So what you're saying is, Delaney, is that California needs to go back under Republican control for the next 30 years.
I would love that. That would be awesome. But the Republicans in California have no backbone, and they're just the same wing on. They're the right wing on the same freaking bird. So they're both controlled by these interest groups that don't really want us to advance and move forward.
So what you mean is they have 2 left feet and are constantly spinning in circles.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, we just covered the story of this $20,000 trash cans. Actually, Jeff, you just missed that one.
So So,
Go ahead,
Dolphin,
Gizzard.
as I'm an ignorant Englishman,
Mm-hmm.
do you think us three single-handedly could fix California within 10 years?
No.
10 years? Probably not, but I think we could fix the direction.
I personally
Yeah.
think we could do it in 10 years. I mean, people say 10 years is not long enough. But with relentless aggression, you can make a lot of things happen in 10 years. I mean, if China proved you could build a skyscraper in 3 weeks, just saying.
Yeah, but the thing is that about China is they're very they're homogenous. Everybody kind of agrees that we're going to work together to make something happen. Whereas California, we all have too many different ideas. We're not all in it together. We don't want to work together. The GOP doesn't want to work with the Democrats. The Democrats don't want to work with the GOP. It's just we don't want to work together. And even just as citizens, like there's just division among the citizens here in California.
Yeah,
What you told about Delaney? Diversity is a strength.
Oh, I wish.
if we were playing
I'm just messing.
Sim City or something like that, we had a simulated version of California, and if we could control it that way, yeah, I would say 10 years we could probably fix it, no problem. But the reality is you got to deal with all these retards who inhabit California, a lot of which aren't even actually U.S. citizens, so it makes it a little tougher when half your population is working under the table and whatnot. And
half your
all your
population isn't even here legally.
and your cash cow companies are leaving to Texas because the business laws aren't conducive to doing business there. So that's also bad. Chloe in the YouTube
So,
chat
just out of
says,
curiosity for you two, as I'm an ignorant Englishman, how much longer do you think California will take before it completely collapses?
Oh, I don't know. Probably like maybe a couple decades, and we're probably going to collapse. I mean, we're already falling apart as it is. So I'd say a couple decades.
So 20 years?
Yeah, I'd say about 20 years is what we have left.
it's hard to guess in time frame, but I can
Interesting.
tell you the linchpin is the tech companies that give them all their tax money. That's where they get all the money from, just to waste on things like trash cans. So as soon as those go, then it's really, Tesla's leaving. Google, all their offices in San Francisco for these tech companies, their leases are being not renewed because they're leaving for remote work and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's the linchpin. Maybe if it continues on this trajectory, I'd say 20 years sounds about accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I wouldn't start up a car company in California. Me personally, I would go to North Carolina because I believe that's the best place to start up a car company. But that's just me.
Yeah, North Carolina's not bad.
All right.
Well, the reason I say that is because I know a few car companies that set up factories there.
You guys ready to get juicy?
Ready to get Jewed or juiced?
Both in this case.
What kind of roids you selling me?
Yeah.
We are on that deep state roids. Deep state roids,
Okay.
that FBI roids. First, we're going to talk about, in our next segment here, we're going to the deep state segment, I guess you could call it. Facebook and tech giants target attacker manifestos and far-right militias in a new database that they're starting to build and maintain. So if you happen to like or share or comment on one of these manifestos for any of these attackers that have happened in the last few years, or you like the 3%ers, for example, on Facebook, or any of the other extremist terrorism groups like the Proud Boys, there's potential for you to be on a new database, counterterrorism database from Reuters.com. Go ahead.
Gonna say, well, I guess I'm in a database.
We're
Just
probably
kidding.
all in a database already, but Reuters says a counterterrorism organization formed by some of the biggest U.S. tech companies, including Facebook and Microsoft, is significantly expanding the types of extremist content shared between firms in a key database aiming to crack down on material from white supremacist and far-right militias. So this is an extension of the 9/11 playbook. I guess this is really what this particular segment should be called, is the 9/11 playbook, which is what we continue to talk about on this channel, is the usage of the 9/11 playbook that we used for 9/11 to react to Islamic terrorism. Only now we're using it on our own people. We're using it on conservatives, on Republicans, and white supremacists, which is an amorphous enough term that it could be applied to really pretty much anybody that doesn't like Mao.
I have a solution for this.
What is
Okay.
it?
Kisses with his solutions.
Yes, I'm one for solutions. We all brand ourselves black, midget, trans, lesbian Jews, and we're all supporters of Black Lives Matter. Therefore,
Yeah,
we won't
that's-
be on the list.
We either won't be on the list or we'll be on the list and we'll completely throw off their algorithm, so it won't really mean anything. But this is now going under what's called the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism. It's a database that's focusing on videos and images from terrorist groups on a United Nations list, and so has largely consisted of content from, up until now, Islamic extremist organizations like the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban. So that's right, you white supremacists, you far-right militias, you're going in the same database as the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS, because you
Wow.
represent a proportional threat. And thankfully, companies like Twitter and Google and Facebook are sharing these files and this data with each other to help identify you guys and make sure that you go into these databases.
I think it's kind of sad that they can spend so much time and energy pinpointing and targeting these white supremacist groups, but people that are part of Antifa and Black Lives Matter that actually go out and burn cities down and terrorize people and rape and murder, they don't get on the list at all. They're not on any list. It's whatever.
No.
They're fine. That's all good.
It's-
But these right wingers that just go out and wave American flags and love this country and claim to be patriots are targeted.
And make memes, too. If you guys follow Paul Joseph Watson, he was talking about how the...
I was just about to say that.
Yep, they're going for the memes now over in England. Kizzo, what's the deal there? Are memes outlawed yet?
No, but basically to backtrack this all goes back to the terrible bill that the European Union tried to pass and somewhat failed, called Article 13 of the Digital Copyright Act, which basically regarded any type of copyright material as in you couldn't use online whatsoever. And ironically enough, Silicon Valley realized, oh crap, this is going to badly affect our service, aka YouTube, and said, no, you're going to destroy us with this bill. And despite the huge public outroar, the bill did get voted through. However, there was many amendments and clauses put in to allow, quote unquote, freedom of expression, what's the American term? Fair use and stuff like that.
Right.
So so it's not over yet, although they are trying. But ultimately, if you try and counter memes, I mean, you really are showing that the emperor has no clothes, and that you are utterly pathetic if you really want to try and censor a cartoon frog or Wojak.
Right.
Yeah,
It's utterly pathetic.
it's not even hyperbolic. They're really literally going after, the Pepe the Frog and Wojak, who is the cartoon guy that looks depressed because he realizes the world is not what it seems. But they realize that it's an effective method of communication and persuasion, which is why they're attacking it.
Yeah,
Anything but Pepe.
I mean, this just screams Soviet Union 2.0.
Yeah,
This
a
just
little
screams
bit.
Soviet Union 2.0. I mean, me personally, I think this is where I know you two obviously have your lovely constitution, and I am very vividly jealous of because I'm English. But this is why we need exemption clauses. So people come up with these bad ideas, they get exempt from the constitution themselves and become victims, in order to teach them a lesson.
Right.
Just an idea.
Exempt.
Just an idea.
Well, this
You're
is
exempt from the Constitution.
this
That'd be
database.
awesome.
The news of this database and the FBI cracking down on this kind of garbage is coming on the heels of. Ironically, we talked on the last stream last week. I specifically mentioned that if you're on Facebook for whatever god awful reason, if you're talking about this kind of stuff on Twitter, if you're sharing this information with other people about your highly politicized views or your quote unquote Fed posting, which is even joking about things like taking a governor hostage or stupid things like that, guess what? The FBI or the CIA, they are watching and they are using that information. And you're an idiot for doing that. Now, right after I said that I found this article that came out regarding Governor Whitmer, governor of Michigan. Now, you guys know this was a international news story, actually. There was a group of guys who were arrested on conspiracy to kidnap the governor of Michigan because of her lockdown policies and whatnot. But turns out, thanks to hard-hitting BuzzFeed News, of all people, are breaking this story. They were actually the ones that looked into this quite a bit. The FBI itself was involved, well, I'm going to say probably involved in the actual planning and execution of this event, which was coordinated over platforms like Facebook and private messaging apps like Wire or Signal. So, guys, don't join Facebook and talk about this kind of stuff. I don't know how dumb you can be, but these guys who are all a part of this, they're all retards. Okay, I don't think this is any. Oh, these are all the storm the Capitals. Come on, Patriots, let's fight back. This is these kind of people who fall for this kind of stuff. Like, they think it's okay. If you read this article from BuzzFeed News, you'll see where they thought they were being sneaky using code words like, what is it? They say the in-laws means CIA and FBI. And if you think you got tailing from the CIA or FBI, you say, I got ticks. My dog's got ticks, means you're getting tailed by feds. Like, if you want to talk about full automatic guns, you say can opener. If you want to talk about ammos and weapons and stuff like that, you say s'mores. And training is a bonfire. Like, they thought this was really going to make them immune to not being caught by algorithms, being caught by insiders, being caught by informants, of which there were now, it seems to be about a dozen in this group. About a dozen FBI informants were infiltrating this group of people. And now, thanks to BuzzFeed, as of just a few days ago, they learned that they were not simply monitoring. Let me find this section here an examination of the case by BuzzFeed News also reveals that some of those informants acting under the direction of the FBI played a far larger role than has been previously reported. Working in secret, they did more than just passively observe and report on the actions of the subjects. Instead, they had a hand in nearly every aspect of the alleged plot, starting with its inception. The extent of their involvement raises questions as to whether there would have even been a conspiracy without them.
Wow. Yeah, well, and just looking at pictures on the BuzzFeed article of the guys that are responsible for this, it's like, yeah, they're all a bunch of just numbskulls that really just, why would you listen to people that look like this? Like, really?
Well, I talked about last week about how I don't like to associate with the extreme, quote-unquote, extremists on the right. The guys who run around with the guns on and the flak jackets, and they think they're tough, and they want to exercise their rights and open, and they got exactly like these guys look like. This is exactly why you don't want to associate with these people. The same kind of people who we talked about were conspiring to attack the Democratic headquarters in Sacramento. 2 people got arrested there as well. You don't want to associate with these people. Yes, in principle, they're trying to stand up for the country. They're trying to stand up for the Constitution. But the execution is not what I would call effective.
Right.
The point here is that the FBI is probably involved in a lot of these types of incidents, and the parallels that people were drawing is to January 6th and the question of whether or not the FBI or any other federal agencies were involved in that at all, and if so, to what extent. Now, for some unknown reason, probably highly coincidental, we don't really hear much about what happened on January 6th, aside from, oh my god, it was scary, and we saw the testimonials of the cops today. They were crying, and Kinzinger was crying, and everybody was crying. It was so terrible, oh my god. We don't see any of the footage. We don't have any answers as to who shot Ashley Babbitt. We don't have any answers from the FBI as to who was involved, who was monitoring the situation. And the fact that we don't have answers to that and they're not being open about it only makes people like this guy get more upset. People like these people get more upset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It just fuels
Sounds
them.
like a pure cope. Sounds like pure cope. And I would bet big money that the CIA are definitely involved.
I would bet money on that too, because
I think it's a safe
CIA
bet.
is CIA has
I mean-
been involved in a lot of things that
I mean,
you never
reminds-
really would think.
I mean, it reminds me of an old joke about the CIA. Yes, I know CIA did bad things in the 50s, and the 60s, and the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s, and the 2000s, and
Yeah.
the 2010s.
In the 2020s.
They're
Oh
clean
yeah, and
cut now.
2020s. Oh, totally clean cut. Nah, definitely. They're not sitting on a pile of skeletons which only a communist could surpass. Definitely not. Definitely, totally, 100%.
This is why I get a kick out of people who say they want to take back the country and save the West and all this kind of stuff, because they have to go literally up against the government, the entire government itself, the FBI, the intelligence agencies. They're all coordinating against your people, your group, your ideas. I don't understand how they think that 20 guys can kidnap a governor. I think that's going to do anything. And it's almost as stupid as saying that if we walk into the Capitol building, we're an insurrection. We're taking over the Capitol. We're threatening the government. We're threatening direct democracy directly by just simply being present in a building. It's just as stupid, in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah,
The
I think they may have taken the idea of "He who dares wins" motto of the SAS a little too seriously.
Not
right.
familiar.
Well, it's the motto of the SAS, and if they were anything like the SAS, they wouldn't speak. They'll be quick, in, out, bish, bash, bosh, and not leave a trace.
Anthony in the YouTube chat says, create the problem, propagandize the public, demoralize. Some retards react. Poof, the problem exists. Yeah, that's really it.
Yep.
The narrative has always been there for free use for any kind of politically expeditious, that's the word I'm looking for, politically expeditious usage to attack Republicans, attack conservatives, attack them as white supremacists, because look at this violent, Charlottesville, white supremacist Nazis. There's Nazis everywhere. You got to give people a few real Nazis every once in a while, a few real white supremacists, so you have to create them out of thin air, because none actually exist. And I think this is exactly what this situation was. The same thing with January 6th. You got to create the insurrectionists out of thin air, and judging by the extent that the coverage that's getting in the media still to this day, several months later, I'd say their attempts are successful, though not objectively in reality. They in the persuasion world, in the media coverage world, it was very effective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, if these people were really the terrorist threat that these federal organizations claimed they were, why haven't they given them a ton of money, Toyota trucks, and guns?
Yeah.
Right?
Asking for a friend.
Yeah. There
But
you
on
go.
that point, to PJ Fan's point, did Barbara Boxer call the police or social worker? I'm pretty certain she called the police.
So this is, I believe, in reference to Barbara Boxer getting mugged in, was it Oakland or San Francisco? One of the two?
Yeah.
I believe it was in
somewhere.
Oakland.
Yeah.
And she got mugged by a quote-unquote child.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds about right for Oakland. I mean,
Is this the type of child I heard about that was apparently trying to get into Europe 6 years ago?
probably similar. Yeah. And it's the kind of child that you raise when you don't have to have a job or any real responsibilities, because the city pays you money just for being poor and black, which they are doing.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, speaking of that, I do remember hearing this, although I couldn't fact check this. Is it true that quote-unquote black Americans have taken the equivalent of repatriations in the last 25 years just in welfare?
Probably, but I haven't looked at the numbers. But I don't know what the target goal is, monetarily speaking, for what they would consider reparations. But
Last
Yeah.
figure
it's a
I heard
lot
was
of
around
money.
$2.5 trillion.
It's a lot of money.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and they were promised 40 acres and a mule, so until they get that, then they're going to just keep taking reparations.
Although one thing I never got when it comes to reparational argument in America, how is it multiple different groups got repatriations for stuff that didn't happen in America.
Right. So you're saying that because they got taken captive by other black tribes in Africa, that they want reparations
No,
for
I mean,
that, or what are you referring to?
I believe I remember seeing the list of cases of repatriations a couple of years ago, and first one I saw even Jews who were victims of World War II, who were rescued by the West, got some form of repatriation. So I'm just like, okay, why is America paying repatriations for a group that they helped save? Question mark.
Couldn't answer that one.
Maybe I was going to say maybe the United States government back then felt bad that they didn't get involved in World War II sooner. So in order to say sorry that we didn't save you guys from the gas camps, here's some reparations. Here's neighborhoods. Here's businesses. Come to our country and become an American citizen. There's your repatriation right there.
Well, there's one particular Hungarian I wouldn't have rescued, but less said about that, the better.
Yeah, I don't want to get us banned.
Let's jump to our final
course,
segment of
of
the
course.
night, which is everybody's favorite, and that is COVID. We're about halfway through the stream, folks. If you enjoyed the content, you like what you're hearing, you want to get more of that alt-centrist, objective, observer perspective, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, all that good stuff. Share, commenting after the video is posted also helps the algorithm as well, though we are not long for this world on YouTube anyway. We do appreciate every bit of engagement.
Yep.
That being said, let's jump to
Excuse me.
COVID segment of the night. So the CDC is flipping in light of the Indian variant, which is taking hold now. They're flipping on the mask recommendations. So they're saying that people need to wear masks indoors now again. Whereas I think in 2 months ago in May, was it, that they said we don't have to wear masks if you're vaccinated? Well, we're getting rid of that. We're going back to the masks now. And I'm curious why you think maybe that is. Is there an ulterior motive here? Because I think there is a little bit of an ulterior motive, and I'd like to share that. But I'm curious if you have any ideas first, Delaney or Kizza.
I would say control again, because they recognize that people not being able to wear the masks, that they're like, okay, I don't need you to control me. I'm good to go. That's just my take.
I mean, considering my absolute joke of a Freedom Day last week, loads of people definitely stopped wearing masks when the mandates were dropped. And I'm sure you two definitely had lots of laughs over the pingdemic over here. But a good chunk of the population deleted the NHS app right after that entire utter joke of an incident happened. Thankfully, I was part of the 21% who didn't download the app anyway. I mean, who the hell would download an app from a very large company who nobody heard of until last year, that was poorly programmed and cost millions of dollars out of my taxpayers' money?
What was the deal with this app? What was the debacle? I'm not familiar. I don't think I'm following.
Basically, the Track Trace app had a massive spurge and caused what's known as the pingdemic, and notified, I believe it was 5 million people at the same time, causing huge amounts of service industries to close down.
Oh, wow.
So they cyber attacked themselves with this terrible tracking app that they put on your phones to track you for COVID. Does that summarize it?
Yes. Now,
astonishing.
yes, basically. Thankfully, I was part of the 21% who never downloaded it.
Good for you, Kizza.
So I didn't. Yes, because I'm smart.
Yep.
And from what I heard, I think an estimated 20% of people who downloaded the app have, when I checked the YouGov polls, have deleted the app since the pingdemic. Their words, not mine.
Signaling who's compliant? Yeah, Bill has a good suggestion there. He says that the masking is just to reinforce the fact that the mask supplies a signal for those who are compliant. Now, when they recommended that you don't wear the mask, or you don't have to wear the mask, it kind of let that upper subjective determination. If somebody's not wearing a mask, well, I don't know right away whether or not that person's a Republican or a Democrat. But when we have mask mandates, then I do know. Now, this is all coming. Remember, I told you guys, or at least predicted, that in July, we would basically be going back to normal. People would kind of be done with it, mentally speaking anyway. They'd want to get back to normal. They wouldn't wear the masks anymore once they can get out and do summer stuff. I think this is number one, a reaction to that, but it's also, it's a way for, predominantly what Bill said, to recreate the terms by which we can use the mask to determine your political stance on things. And another question I have is there any doubt anymore in anyone's mind that the vaccines do not prevent you from getting COVID?
Is there any doubt?
Yeah, people used to tell us that the vaccine prevents you from getting COVID. Now, does anybody still believe that? Is the question I have.
I mean, half of them are not even vaccines, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Only two of the five. Only about 2 out of the 5 are actually vaccines by classical definitions.
Right. Well, now they're playing the language war game where they're using the vaccination term to mean something that it's not really meaning. But, they want that persuasion that comes along with that.
Well, this is why we need hard copies of the Oxford English Dictionary.
Wait, a copy that can't be updated on the second that we need to change the definition of a word? That's not going to work.
Well, yes, but I'm pretty certain the AZ variant developed by Oxford University is a proper vaccine, from what I read. And I believe the Johnson & Johnson one is a proper vaccine as well.
Yes.
But the Pfizer one, the
Moderna.
Australian one, and something else, I forget what the other one is. Yeah, those are not vaccines. They are, what's it called? MHRN? Or what was it?
mRNA.
I forgot the medical term. That's it, mRNA.
Yep. So
that's the one.
This isn't really a surprise to anyone, but I think this is kind of, it does not help the CDC's credibility, as if they had any credibility left, which for me, as an objective person, I want to be able to look to the CDC or places like this as a organization that has authority and knowledge that I can use to guide, not necessarily tell me what to do, but give me guidance. Give me some relevant information that I can use to guide myself. But now we've gotten beyond the point that they no longer have any credibility in my eyes at all. And that's not a political decision on my part to say, oh, well, the CDC said something I disagree with. I'm not going to listen to them anymore. No, they have literally flip-flopped so many times in the last year that I cannot, as an objective observer, take anything they say seriously anymore. I just can't.
Right. I can't either.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked to family over the weekend about the vaccine, and like my mom, she's just like, I'm not going to take it because, one, I don't know what's in it, and 2, people are still getting COVID even though they are vaccinated. So if it's really helping people, then why are people still able to get it? Or why are people still getting it if it actually works and it's actually helping people?
And that's,
well,
I think there's a little bit of red pilling happening there too, because people are going to start to realize that if they're being told to put the mask back on, but they got the vaccine, well, why do I have to put the mask back on if I'm already vaccinated? It's gonna, and then they see the cases going up when they know that how many 60% of the population or whatever is vaccinated already. That should at least in a functional brain with a minimum IQ of like 50, that should raise a question of the effectiveness of the vaccine.
Well, I mean, speaking as someone in the most vaccinated country in all of Europe, and I believe second overall in the world, I'm absolutely laughing at this entire situation. And I had this argument before how to prevent this ever happening again. The most effective method, as Japan and South Korea have proven, is to terminate international travel.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that'd be.
And
a good
I don't
start.
mean just terminate from the I don't mean just terminate travel from the infected country in question. Terminate all international travel.
Yeah, I'd be in agreement with that. But you know what? That really hurts our perception of globalism. Because if I can't access any country I want in the entire world overnight, well, we're not really much of a global community anymore. And then that creates separation, and then we might encourage that one little terrible idea of nationalism if you cut off international travel. We don't want that.
Well, I'm just saying this right now, okay? The European Union's single market drastically increased the amount of infections and deaths in the continent compared to what Japan and South Korea did. Because I'm sorry, if you have free movement of people, you allow free movement of viral infections. This is a fact. Anyone with basic knowledge of epidemiology will accept this.
Well, yeah. How do you think the
And also, if you
monkeypox got to
terminate
America
international
last
travel,
week?
Right.
well, exactly. If you terminate international travel, how does a virus get to you?
Right. Yeah. That's
Doesn't.
the joke that I made at the beginning
It's very,
of this
very
thing
difficult.
was that
Very difficult.
somebody in China ate a bat, and now the NBA shut down because that was one of the first things to shut down. But the joke is, obviously, there's some kind of international travel required for this thing to spread to that degree, and but that's way too logical. We can't do that.
Well, actually, on this point though, this is something that does make me laugh though.
Yeah.
Have you both you two and everyone else in the chat been comparing COVID infections and deaths between countries?
No. Why? I'm sure there's the disparities, but I'm curious what you've been seeing.
Oh, okay. I would say this right now. Ignore China. Just ignore China straight up.
Yeah.
But Japan is the most interesting one. Now, to put this into context, Japan is a tiny island. I'm sure we all agree. With a population of 126 million people. It's densely populated, right?
Absolutely.
How many deaths do you think they've had?
Not very many. I would say low.
I would say low deaths. Yeah.
How low do you reckon?
I don't know how many we've had in. Well, okay, so we've had what 600,000 in America. I'd say they probably had less than 20,000, less than 50,000.
So which one are you taking, 20 or 50?
I'll say 50.
Okay, Delaney, how about you?
I'd say like maybe I'm gonna just be a little bit more liberal and say 100,000.
Well, you both missed the mark by quite a margin. Less than
yeah?
15,000 deaths.
Wow.
Yeah, my first guess was a little.
And consider this. That's less than New York.
Which is, when you talk about density and population density, it's about the same caliber of a population, right?
Japan's a very densely populated country. Excluding tax havens, they are the most densely populated country in the world, and they are not a young country. They have one of the oldest populations in the world.
So that'd be good evidence to point to say what I've been saying all along is that this thing only kills fat people and old people. But now, if we look at those numbers, I mean, with Japan and being like one of the oldest populations on average, I think, in the world, as far as developed countries go, that doesn't seem to hold true so much because they have a lot of old people and the deaths don't correlate. So what do they not have is fat people.
Exactly. And also, this reminds me of a little Twitter thread that I remember watching with Zuby. 20 lessons he learned or got confirmed. And if you haven't seen that video, please look it up. It's a great little eye-opener you should send to your normie friends, showing how utterly ignorant and stupid the majority of people are. And I keep hearing this talk of, things will return to normal. There is not going to be a return to normal. What you will have is the new normal. Or, as Yuri Bezmenov wisely said, that you'll be in a state of normalization.
Good old Yuri. Yes, always keeping us in check here. I'm just saying, sorry to interrupt, Jeremy, just to bring up a terrible event, did things return to normal after 9/11? No, of course not. Yeah, no.
No. We had the new normal.
New normals. Which is really the whole point. I mean, if we don't get a new normal, this was all for nothing. In their eyes. Anyway, let's go to stereo.
Exactly.
We got a few commenters here.
Yo, 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 what it do? This is the Gay Republican tuning into you. Good evening, happy Tuesday, Weekly Narrative. Kieran Jameson Delaney, what is going on to all of you? This is Stereo's Adorable Deplorable in the house. Just wanted to drop an initial message, show you all some love and support for bringing a very necessary conversation here to the Stereo streets.
Thank you, sir. Agreed.
I just got a follow with him as well.
Oh, nice. Let's go. We got another UK correspondent, Moneypenny here.
Hey guys, British correspondent.
So, fascinatingly, the source, what do you call, number uno that took the infection, the Delta variant, into Australia,
Patient zero.
had been in isolation and tested negative 3 times before they were allowed out. And then they brought the Delta variant in.
Well, it's funny because we've got a story about testing and how accurate that is coming up next. She's got a follow-up here, though.
Call me a skeptic, but I'm not convinced the figures coming out of the Far East and Russia are particularly reliable. However, having said
Agreed.
that, despite the massive increase in cases in the UK, the deaths and mortality stayed very low indeed. In fact, there was no excess mortality measured in the last few months in the UK. What does that mean? Less people died in the UK, even with Delta and COVID, in 2021 than they did in 2018 and 2019. Go figure. Oh, by the way, breaking news. CDC reverses course and is expected to recommend on Tuesday people vaccinated for the coronavirus resume wearing masks indoors. The change follows reports of rising breakthrough infections.
How about that? And that's exactly why, ladies and gentlemen, the title of the stream today is The COVID Narrative Continues to Crumble, because all these lies are being told are being exposed with time. Thank God for time, because that's the one thing these people cannot account for. And this stuff is all coming to light, including the fact, as she mentioned, the testing does not seem to be very effective. Let's take a look at, you remember we talked about the PCT testing? PCT threshold cycles and whatnot, all those mumbo-jumbo buzzwords. Well, we've got a fascinating story here. Actually, I'm going to jump to that. This is a different story. Lab alert, CDC changing the PCR testing, PCR, not PCT, changing the guidelines and removing their emergency use authorization for the real-time PCR testing. Now, this is from just a week ago. The CDC is not going to continue use of the PCR tests, which are the quick, fast diagnostic panels, into 2022 because they are not effective. And this is in the CDC's own words. Let me just go ahead and read this. CDC recommends clinical laboratories and testing sites that have been using the CDC 2019 nCoV RT-PCR assay select and begin their transition to another FDA-authorized COVID-19 test. The CDC encourages laboratories to consider adoption of a multiplexed method that can facilitate detection and differentiation of SARS-CoV-2 and influenza viruses. Let me read that again in case you missed it, with a different emphasis. CDC encourages laboratories to consider adoption of a multiplex method that can facilitate detection and differentiation of SARS-CoV-2 and influenza.
So they're going to use the better test from now on instead of the rapid test.
They're going to use better testing, but the point is, you remember how everyone's talking about how, influenza cases they're down, they're zero, there's no influenza cases. Well, it turns out, according to the CDC's, if I'm reading this correctly, the CDC is admitting that the PCR tests that they authorized back in 2019 or 2020, whatever it was, cannot distinguish, they cannot differentiate between COVID and influenza. And they're recommending that you use a test that can differentiate between COVID and influenza. So, all those stories about influenza not existing and guys saying, oh, no, the influenza doesn't exist anymore because everyone's wearing masks. That's what it is. No, it's because every single test that these people did, that people they had the flu, but they got a PCR test that came back as positive because they had the flu, got counted as COVID instead of influenza. Now,
Yeah, that's bad.
yeah.
Wah, wah,
So,
wah.
I mean, that reminds me of a little video I remember circling, but social media tried claiming it was fake news.
Oh,
The
yeah.
supposed founder or creator of the PCR said it couldn't be used to detect COVID. That was apparently fake news.
Yep. No,
But I guess he was proven correct.
I think he'd be a credible source on it anyway, seeing as how he created the tests. But I mean,
Yeah. I really hope the man in question did sue him. I really hope he sued them.
He should.
I can't shrug hard enough. Like, how much stupider does this need to get? And we've been calling out the PCR cycle tests here for a long time. We've been calling out the fact that the influenza virus is being 0 for like the entire year, and flu deaths being 0 for the entire year seemed a little peculiar, worth examining anyway. And you have to go back again to the incentives. Where do the incentives lie for counting a COVID patient over an influenza patient? Well, here in America,
Extra funding.
Here in America, that translates into extra funding, and that goes directly into our next story. Actually, the next story takes us over to your neck of the woods, Kizza, and the NIH. So this is from MSN.com. More than half of COVID hospitalizations were from people who only tested positive after admission to the hospital, according to leaked
I did
data
see this.
from the NHS Trust in England. So what does this mean? It took me a second to figure this out, but let me reread this real quick and then explain. More than half of COVID hospitalizations were from people who only tested positive after admission to the hospital. What this means is they went to the hospital for a different reason, like a broken leg or headaches or whatever you go to the hospital for, and then they test them while they're in the hospital, and then they get a positive test back from that because, again, the incentives incentivize hospitals. I don't know how the incentive structure is built up in over there in England. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that, Kizza. But over here in America, hospitals get more funding for the more COVID patients they have from the CARES Act, the COVID Relief Act. So the numbers, again, continue to look terrible. As time goes on, we see that a lot of this is ending up just to be an absolute scam. And this is more than half of the COVID hospitalizations, people. Not like an insignificant number, not like, 10%, 5% of the hospitalizations. No, when you go in the news and you hear CNN talking about the hospitalizations are through the roof right now, or they're seeing record numbers of hospitalizations, it's because they have people, more than half of those are people who went to the hospital for some other reason and got a test that got them positive, marked as positive for COVID, and then those people count for COVID hospitalizations. Or I think there's even a time frame that extends like 7 days beyond the hospital visit, which would still classify them as a COVID hospitalization, despite the fact that they weren't in the hospital for COVID and they aren't even in the hospital anymore. So, I mean, Jesus Christ, how much more can this house of cards crumble down? If you're paying attention to this, I don't know how you... Did COVID even happen? At this point, we see the numbers are fake. The hospitalizations are all fake. The statistics are all, fudged up. People, did we just have a really bad flu? Was there even really a COVID?
I would just say this, Jeremy, and this is also for you, Delaney, and anyone else who's listening to this. If you want to know the true numbers of actual COVID deaths, at the worst, divide your reported numbers by 10. At the best, divide them by 30.
I think that's a good guideline, yeah.
That's a very safe guideline, and the reason I can say this is because in my country, well, technically, there was a Freedom of Information request from NHS Scotland on how many deaths were recorded purely due to COVID between March 2020 to January 2021. Purely due to COVID. No other underlying symptoms. Guess how much they responded with? Now, to give you some context, in that same time period, it was reported there was 12,000 deaths of COVID in that time period. How many do you think actually died from COVID?
I would say maybe like 1,000.
Okay, what do you reckon, Jeremy?
Sounds about right.
Not too far off. The actual number was 594.
Wow.
Well, we've covered...
So less than 5%.
Yeah, no, we've covered multiple stories about how states or counties, entire counties and medical health systems in California, for example, are simply changing the criteria by which they measured COVID deaths and then vanishing out of thin air, 25% of their COVID deaths. We saw New York, they're fudging their numbers as well. giving fake numbers actually to the state to again, I think exploit the incentives that are there for. But we've seen the numbers fudged both ways. People saying they have more deaths, people saying they have less deaths, and despite the fact we've seen the numbers move, like Alameda County or Santa Clara County changing their death rates, the national number never went down. I don't think that effort percolated up to the top to where the national number counter went backwards by 15,000 or whatever it was in Alameda County. But that number just continues to go up and up and up. They're not going to revise that. They're not going to look at that at all.
Yeah, why would they revise that number, Jeremy? Because how else will CNN, MSNBC, ABC, all these major news corporations fearmonger you into getting the vaccine if they actually are like, we're going to roll back the number about like 25%. So instead of that 700,000 number, 600,000 number that we've been screaming at you for months that has been going on, it's actually like 25% less. So yeah, you should still get your vaccine though, because 25% less is still a lot.
Yeah. All I'm going to say on that is, when this all blows up, and it will eventually, because it's very hard to keep this type of secret under wraps.
Time.
The sheer blowback and loss of credibility the entire medical industry will suffer will be, dare I say, biblical.
Oh, yes.
I think that's
and
exactly
I will
what
say
we need.
this to. Sorry to interrupt. I will say this: when it comes to reading statistics, one rule I always have: if you're going to count something towards something, unless you can absolutely guarantee that there was nothing else it could be, it should be counted. Anything else that can be counted for something else, you don't count it to the list. Simple as that.
I agree.
That's way to eliminate any potential errors when you're doing statistics.
Yeah, and you always have to also be mindful of the incentives. Again, if you're creating a system where I'm going to give you government funding, if you can for every COVID case you tell me you have, I'm not going to validate that at all. There's no way for me as the government to validate how many COVID cases you have. All you have to do is say we had 50,000 COVID cases this month. You should know, if you've taken any kind of civics classes, you understand basic human nature, you would think that the people on the highest levels of government would understand incentives and human nature to a point to where, yeah, there's probably going to be some fudging of the numbers, and but that is not the case.
Always.
Not the case.
I mean, how? If you want a prime example of incentives, look at the lockdowns and stimulus checks or furlough scheme we had in the United Kingdom. Do you think I wanted to go back to work when I was getting effectively my full paycheck to stay at home?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Which was, to put in context, $2,500 a month. Do you think I want to go back to work?
We're seeing that same problem here in America. Yep. Nobody wants to go back to work because of the money they're getting from the government.
And this is exactly why, ladies and gentlemen, UBI will not work. And anyone who says it will work, point this out to them.
People in the chat are commenting there's still mic noise coming from you pretty bad, Kizzo.
Sorry, blame the wind.
Yeah, blame the weather.
Are you inside or are you outside?
Outside, just not to wake my folks.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's clearly fake virus, fake news, and that's the other incentive, is that the media is incentivized to spread doom and gloom, death surge, chyrons and headlines and whatnot to sell the story, to sell the clicks, to make that money. So really, I mean, the incentives, you can understand everything about this whole situation, how we got here, why we got here, in the history books when they diagnose how this happened and why this happened. 500 years from now, it's all going to be about the incentives. They say, well, of course the media blew this out of proportion. Look at why they were incentivized to do so. Of course companies fudged the numbers. Of course none of the numbers were real because all the incentives were in place for that to happen. So it's a really, I mean, few of us can understand as we're living through it. We're seeing why this is happening, but it'll be very apparent once we look back and get that 2020 vision.
Yeah, people don't watch the news for good news. They watch the news to reinforce their own hypochondriacy, whatever it is, to be like, oh, I'm not going to go outside. Yeah, they're not going to go out. Like, I'm not going to go outside because the news told me that 700,000 people have died. They're not. They're not watching the news to actually get informed about stuff going on in the world. They want to reinforce their own idiocracy.
Now, if you want to ask the question of what is the incentive to separate the country, well, that is a whole separate question, and it is happening. We're going to examine a few quick stories about where this separation is happening, because we've already got states like New York and California mandating vaccines. That's right, folks. But before we get that, let's do a couple comments that came in the stereo.
So you just read about the CDC ending or winding down the real-time PCR.
Yep.
The thing was, the COVID, flu, and influenza reporting was always wrapped up together anyways. When it came to influenza, flu was not separated from influenza and COVID numbers. So they were reporting the numbers combined to begin with. So it just seems interesting that they're trying, the whole thing's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Interesting indeed. Moneypenny.
Yeah, so there's no incentive structure in the UK to have higher numbers. To my knowledge, local regional areas do not get paid any more money based on their coronavirus figures. They do get more resources in terms of testing and maybe vaccinating, but there's no real incentive for it. What is interesting is those people that did get COVID positive, that were already in the hospital, that count in the hospitalization numbers, were potentially the adverse effects from vaccine people. Adverse effects that happen within the first few weeks, sometimes days or hours after the vaccine, but until your antibodies are built up, you could still catch COVID. So you do that in hospital when you're dying from a blood clot.
Love you, Moneypenny.
Yes, thank you for that. It doesn't make sense that because everything's run by the government there, that there's no incentives to, get that money back. Because, most of the healthcare companies out here in America are privatized anyway. Well, not really, but technically privatized. Let's just say that.
Technically.
Well,
Go ahead, Giz.
I was just going to say I'm English and I wouldn't recommend the NHS to anyone outside the UK.
Noted.
Like, despite what Bernie Bros and types will say, I think as someone who's English, the NHS is not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, it's not even an NHS by definition. It's actually an IHS. I'm sure you two are smart enough to work out what that stands for.
Anthony.
So my son earlier this year was like 16 months. He was really sick, high fever, boogeries, couldn't breathe, all this stuff. It was like the generic symptoms list, which the COVID symptoms list is massive, but he exuded some of the symptoms. We know he didn't have COVID, but then the doctor said, "Oh yeah, we're not allowed to do flu check for flu." The doctor was actually pissed about the policy. And then now with his differentiation and all this, so, we could have went to the hospital for the flu and gotten COVID while there, but they can't test for the flu. It's so stupid.
Wow. Not allowed to test for the flu. That's astonishing. Yeah, I had not heard of that. But, again.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, exactly. If when you're incentivized to count COVID cases, of course they're going to create policies like that.
Yeah, why test for the flu when we can get more money out of, the governments and all of the special interests that are going to give us free money if we test for COVID instead of the flu.
Again,
there's no incentive to test for the flu.
Nobody in the government is going to be going through the numbers and saying, well, you said Louis had COVID, but did he really have COVID? We're going to ask Louis, and we're going to go through his genetic history and all this stuff to see if he really had. They're not going to validate any of it, so of course you can just lie and say everybody's COVID when it's really all influenza. Osis.
And best of all, we can blame the Orange Man for his incompetence.
Oh,
of course.
yeah.
Even though
it's a win-win.
There's not a whole lot you can do about it. You can rail on him, and then change everything after Joe Biden gets in office. It's just a beautiful thing. Stop his rallies, make Joe Biden look more popular than he actually is because nobody shows up and everyone hates him. He's old, incompetent, and senile. I mean, all of the stars aligned for this one.
True.
It makes me believe none of the stars aligned, and a lot of people had something to do with it.
That's kind of what I've been saying from the start, man. Too many stars aligned in this whole situation to claim that it was entirely 100% organic. Let's just say that. Don't have to get too
Yeah.
conspiratorial by
yeah.
saying it wasn't
Yeah,
organic.
very augmented.
Yes.
Very augmented.
That's a
this was.
good way to put it.
And also to blame Orange Man bad. Remind us again who was the one who wanted to terminate international travel and
Yeah.
didn't command people to hug a Chinese person.
Right. Yeah.
And also, where did the overwhelming majority of deaths and infections come from? Oh wait, blue states.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So Democrats are all at fault.
But no, the
And also-
Democrats saved us from the Orange Man, Kizza.
Oh really? Last time I
Yes,
checked,
I mean,
it wasn't the Dems.
That's what I've heard.
What's
I mean,
it-
I don't believe it.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't the vaccine rollout before Trump left office?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, but it's Biden's vaccine.
Yeah, it's Biden's vaccine, not Trump's.
And
Okay, just like Trump's economy was Obama's.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it
exactly.
works in America. It's always the next president that's coming in. It's always his undertaking to fix things, and it's always his. You know, if he does something good, it's always his clout to chase instead of the guy that actually did the real work and left a good standing economy, whatever it is, for the next president. It's always the new guys, the incumbent guys. Good grace.
I think my favorite.
Okay, so it's Obama's fault for the state of the 2008 economic crash.
Yep.
My favorite example of
No,
this,
he fixed it.
of the retroactive kind of preferential treatment or whatever you want to call it, is Joy Reid.
Mm-hmm.
Joy Reid, who is now becoming one of the largest media personalities on the left, which I would consider kind of like the mentally ill left. She has a tweet that came out in December 2019, or was it 2020? I think 2019. No, 2020. Yeah. Anyway, she had a tweet literally saying like, "Why would you ever trust the CDC? Who could ever trust a vaccine from this that's approved by this FDA?" Basically, saying like more extreme anti-vaxxer statements than people who are getting called anti-vaxxer are saying today. And now she's on that side saying, "Oh my God, I love wearing a mask all day when I'm vaccinated, and you should get vaccinated. Everyone needs to get vaccinated. The people who aren't vaccinated are the ones causing the problem. Those are the real problem." I mean, it's just so rich.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, on that point, let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that back in 2006, the same CDC straight up published an ad which said, and I quote, "If you smoke, you're a fag."
Oh.
I am not joking you. You can find us on YouTube.
That's a good ad. That's effective, I think.
I'm not joking you.
I don't want to
And
smoke
also, secondly of all,
because of that.
people talk about distrust in the vaccine. Did everyone remember the vice president debate last year?
Yes.
Somewhat.
Which vice president straight up said that they would not take the vaccine again?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Camel Toe Harris.
Exactly. So, Kamala Harris, you have blood on your hands, dear. You should resign if you have any honor left in your body. Oh wait,
Well,
you're a
she's not-
hoe, but you by default don't have any honor.
Yeah, I was gonna say she has no honor whatsoever. But excuse me, she's talking. Let the woman talk.
But no mean tweets.
She's a woman.
Yes, thanks for reminding us, Bill. There are no mean tweets anymore, so it's all worth it. Looks like Paul brings up a good point in the YouTube chat. They're talking about the history and how this is going to be recorded and how we're looking back anyway. And he says, this is a huge red pill if you think about it. How much of the history do you think you know? That you think you know is real, complete, and exhaustive. And this goes back to, we're talking about the stats and how as we're living through this thing, and if you've been watching the weekly narrative, you watch the show, you've seen in real time how the narrative has changed literally weekly on this COVID thing. It used to be all about the R naught number, and then it used to be all about the hospitalizations, and then it used to be all about the cases, and it's the criteria for how we're measuring this thing has changed over time, and the stability of the data, the integrity of the data is changing over time as well, and now we're watching that. And I always say, do you think the truth is actually available? Even if you had the ability to look at a database that had all the information about who really died from COVID or who had underlying conditions, who was fat and who was overweight and who was old, what the ages were, all that stuff. Do you think that the truth is actually even really available? Are we ever really going to know how many people died from COVID? And I say the obvious answer, at least to me, and if you've been paying attention, is no. The truth is not available in a lot of the stories and the things that we talk about on this channel. And people assume not only that the truth is available, but that you don't have to put in any effort to get the truth. You simply have to receive it from your media outlet of choice. You just have to listen, which is a big problem because then people have an inherent trust in the media outlets. But they don't have to do any work at all to get the truth. You don't have to dig through data. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to apply critical thoughts like we do. Like, hey, the PCR testing and the flu numbers look a little off. Maybe something's off there. 6 months later, we're talking about the fact that the PCR tests are being discontinued because they count flu. This is the kind of stuff that people are not capable of.
Nope, definitely not.
This reminds me of a George Orwell quote. What was it about every record being rewritten, every book, every statue taken down, every street being renamed?
I don't know the quote, but I
Sound familiar to anyone?
Yeah. We're living through it right now. I mean, we're literally tearing down statues, and depending on like Bill said, to the victor go the spoils. Whoever wins this thing is going to be writing the history. So maybe they won't look back and say, well, look at all the incentives that were in place that made this thing happen. But anyway, let's go to Paul in the stereo.
I just had a terrifying epiphany when he said the chirons, however that's pronounced, spelled. No one knows.
Death Surge.
You read a history book, it compresses millennia of recorded history into small paragraphs. Those small paragraphs are chirons. That's what COVID's going to be. It's going to be like, this virus was the worst thing since the Spanish flu, even though it wasn't. And Trump made it worse, even though he didn't. And it's clown world, honk honk. The victors will write the history.
Boom. It's almost like I knew exactly what you were going to say before you said it. Well said, sir.
Sidekick Jeremy here.
Well, let's go. One more comment from Anthony, and then we're going to give you 3 quick examples before we go tonight of how society is already splitting itself into 2 or more parallel societies because of the vaccination mandates.
I think the truth is in there. The truth is already in the numbers. Flu went down, COVID went up. Flatline. There was the same amount of people have died year on year on year on year. We saw a record low flu percentage, which then they equated to the lockdown, which isn't true, because before we were locked down, which is the reason for the lockdown, the numbers were high. The numbers are there. It's just using them, if you weaponize them or you select certain numbers. The virus, the COVID didn't kill any more people than that were already dying.
Yep.
Every year.
So I think he's agreeing, but I want to put a caveat on that. The truth is out there, but you have to work for it. You have to find it. You have to search. You have to go on a journey to look like through the numbers, for example. The average person would just look at that and say, oh, okay, yeah, COVID cases are high, flu cases are down. I believe it. That's not necessarily true. We got a literal, it looks like a clown avatar in stereo. Let's see what she's got to say.
What do you guys think of the Republican Party now branding the vaccination, the Trump vaccination? Because Republicans are starting to see a lot of the people who are dying of COVID-19 are Republicans because they're not vaccinated. Not that I care. At this point, I just really don't care. I'm going to take care of mine, mask up, and may the odds be forever in your favor. And I hope there's less of them to vote for 2022.
See, I told you people would stop caring in July, and she's still masking, so she's not a Republican. But even they don't care. But to answer your question, I don't know why they'd be labeling it the Trump. I think they're still trying to get clout for the fact that he got the vaccine out early, but I don't know of any other motive besides that to try to pin him as like a killer for killing Republicans. But a lot of Republicans are very fat, so vaccination or not, because we know because of the breakthrough cases, people are still dying anyway. Not as
I'm
big
sure
numbers,
we
but
could
still dying.
I mean, I'm sure we can all agree here. COVID has a higher body count than the Clintons do.
She's got a follow up. Let's hear what she had to say.
Let me tell you something. We live in a fucking capitalist society, okay? A capitalist society. There is no one trying to kill us off. We are already being tracked by our phones and because of the Patriot Act after 9/11. You guys are a bunch of cuckoos.
Wait,
okay.
I think she's...
Are we cuckoos?
Did
I
we-
mean, she's just stating the obvious. I mean, hell, that. I mean, technically, that goes before the Patriot Act. I mean, did everyone forget the RICO Accord?
I don't know. She seems to be claiming that we want people to die to like the vaccine or something like that. Like, I don't know. I don't know where she got that. It isn't. We're just talking about the numbers here, which are all very fake and obvious.
I mean, just to quote the UK numbers here, the average life expectancy for someone with COVID was 82. The average life expectancy normally is 81. So if your granny gets COVID, throw her a party.
Yeah, that's. I don't understand really what that comment was, but I think what happened was she's just pumping out the stereotypical like gut response reactions. She's hearing something that doesn't go really with exactly in her alignment, so she's tossing out what she's been trained to toss out. Let's correct this with Paul. A comment from Paul.
Real capitalism hasn't been tried, least of all in 21st century America. I think latter 19th century America, when our wealth exploded and we became the richest country in the world by the early 20th, until the Federal Reserve slowly fucked everything, then Nixon, and here we are.
The least capitalistic realm of American society is healthcare. There's no more intrusive government presence than in healthcare. It's the reason why healthcare sucks so much in America is because of all the regulations and the government interference. So, to even just say we live in a capitalism society, not really.
Funny how the most capitalist countries in the world, ironically enough, have some of the best healthcare systems in the world, and also don't charge their consumers an arm and a leg. Just a thought. Just a thought.
Blue and On in the building, Anthony. Yes, thank you for pointing out. That's what that is. That's what I was trying to say. This is Blue and On programmed response from an NPC. That's what that is. Q Jar says we are the least capitalist and free market now than we have ever been in the history of this country. So blaming everything on capitalism never adds up. Well, these people, they don't even know what capitalism is. So you can't.
I would counter that, Jeremy. I would counter that with the FDR era. I would argue you're more capitalist now than you were during the FDR era, but that's just me.
Okay. All right.
That lady just made me chuckle. Like, that was great. Thank you for your comment, even though it was a little bit silly, but
I'm sure
whatever.
she would be in favor of what we're about to talk about right now, which is to wrap up the show. And, we love talking about parallel societies and the fact that they are forming, whether you like it or not. They are forming against your will. So why not start your own on your own terms? That's kind of the moral of the story here. But let's talk about the Steelers.
Oh, yeah.
Steelers. Well, I'm talking about the football team, the Steelers, not the
American football, not what you Europeans and the rest of the world love.
Yeah, not the Chicago rioters who are going into shoe stores. I'm talking about Steelers here.
Oh yeah, okay.
Steelers unvaccinated players will wear yellow wristbands. Pittsburgh Steelers have a high vaccination rate among players. Those who have yet to get the shot will stick out like a proverbial sore thumb. Per the team, Steelers players who haven't been vaccinated yet will be wearing yellow wristbands at practice. The Steelers have been among the most successful at getting players to choose to take the vaccine. This is a testament to the persuasive powers of the coach. But just kind of harkens memories of forcing particular groups of people to wear certain articles of clothing based on their status, or in this case, vaccination status. So there's one just quick example. The next example we've got is from California, who is requiring all state and healthcare workers, state government employees and healthcare employees, to either become vaccinated or be subject to weekly testing. So, be careful of fake news. They're not requiring you to get vaccinated. Some Republican outlets will probably claim it to be as such, but really what they're saying is if you're not vaccinated by, September 3rd or something like that, then you will have to get tested every single week into perpetuity. All government employees and healthcare workers. The new rule will take effect next month. Officials announced Monday there are at least 238,000 state employees, according to California's Comptroller's Office, and at least 2 million healthcare workers in public and private sectors. California will be requiring that all state workers and healthcare employees will need to provide proof of getting the COVID-19 vaccination or be subject to weekly testing. So there you go. What do you think that's going to do to...
On that point...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, on that point, pull the intersectionalist card and identify yourself as vaccinated.
Right? That's what I do.
Yeah. What do they mean by
Exactly.
proof? What is that? What proof that you're vaccinated? What is that, like a card with a signature on it that could be easily duplicated from the home printer?
Laminated.
Oh, you mean...
It needs to be laminated.
You mean papers,
and
please?
Yeah,
Papers,
papers,
please.
please.
Exactly. Yeah.
Multi-pass.
Yeah, I mean, what I find most hilarious about this is that a few years ago in my country, a certain politician said that they didn't want people to come to this country if they had HIV, and there was outroar about this. But now we want a quote unquote COVID passport just to travel.
Not only California, but also New York. Seem to be it's the strange coincidence that New York and California are operating hand in hand with all this COVID stuff. And to continue that trend, New York is also requiring its city employees to become vaccinated or face weekly testing. It's almost as if they went into like a governor's meeting, Cuomo and Newsom, some kind of really that's got to be one of the worst conference calls it could possibly be on. But it sounds like they agreed on these terms. Where like, you know what, starting in September, we're just going to start testing everybody every single week. All city employees of New York or who aren't vaccinated, and that's it. So 45,000 workers in the city employees group of New York. So combine that with, millions who work for healthcare companies in California and the several 100,000 that work for the state. You've got a good splitting of society happening right here.
I don't know if like New York and California can handle the amount of money that they're going to be spending, like with the public money on all these tests, weekly tests for people. They
can easily fund it. Remember, they got this big money printing machine called the Federal Reserve.
Oh yeah,
They'll pay for everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's not like it's my money or Jeremy's money or anybody else's money. It will just have the Federal Reserve print some more for us.
This is why we need opt-out options in taxes and contributions, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I think an opt-in or opt-out system would be perfect. And I plan to implement that in the city that I build once I get that land anyway. QJar says, time to relearn Photoshop and get a totally legit jab report. Yeah, no, that's easily done.
Very true.
I know people that have fake jab reports.
Well, that's going to be one of the next things they cry about is that, it's too easy for people to get a fake COVID card, so we need to establish like Klaus Schwab's international cyber identity program where, you have your banking and your health systems and your ID all tied into this one cryptographically sealed identification system. So that's going to be the next step. That's coming. It's coming.
Jeremy, you haven't been taking notes from Tony Blair's identification cards he tried to push over here 15 years ago, are you?
I have not been taking notes. No, what's been going on there?
Well, I mean, this was a policy that thankfully was rejected, but basically back in the day when a certain twat called Tony Blair was running the country, he wanted to push this great idea of a special identification cards which would have had retina scans, fingerprints, and 39 pieces of information.
Oh, wow.
In which case, if you lost this card, not only did you need to get a new one, you had to get new eyeballs and a finger transplant. Does that sound like a good idea, ladies and gentlemen? And before you think I'm joking, I am not joking. This was a policy that was actually rejected.
Well, good. Glad it was rejected.
At least you had the sense to reject it.
Yeah, thankfully it was rejected in Parliament at a time when they were full of fucking morons who decided to get involved in 2 pointless wars in the Middle East.
Yeah, here's your conspiracy theory joke here from JC Steck in the YouTube comments. He said, they did it with Barry's birth certificate.
Right.
In reference to printing your vaccination card on your own printer. QJar says we need a cyber identity program for vaccination records, but don't ever do it for voting. That's oppression. Yes, exactly. ID is racist everywhere except for vaccination or voting. Sorry.
I was just also going to say as well, this type of idea, surely this is going to be highly oppressive and white supremacist against minorities, because, minorities don't have identification.
Yep.
So therefore, Delaney, you're being oppressed here, so you can sue them for discrimination.
Right.
Yeah, black people don't know.
I
about
can't because I'm a
photography
straight white man.
White.
Yes, sir. Let's go to... we got one more comment in stereo from a new guy, it looks like. I don't think I've seen his name before, and then we'll wrap it up.
If every being does everything they can to make sure every being is feeling as good as possible, that is the best we can hope for.
Okay. Succinct, to the point.
Yeah.
I think I disagree with the premise slightly, because I don't think everybody else's welfare is of my concern. More of a enlightened self-interest type of person, where you take care of yourself first, and that will enable you to participate, be productive in society in a way that will help other people. But, it's...
But that's because, Jeremy, we all took the wise route and took an English concept of human rights, not the French's idea of human rights.
Oh, is that
That's why the French, along with their comrades, the Germans, should never have been allowed to talk.
Well, I appreciate the comment anyway, sir. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Always.
Just the pure distillation of leftist Marxist cancel culture, soulless rubbish. Yeah, well said. As a kid, I never imagined our country taking this turn, says Phil in the YouTube chat. Well, you know what, Phil? It's time, buddy. I think it's time for everybody to realize that the country is, at least for now, at this part in this cycle, beyond the pale. Okay, and we're going to be beyond the pale for a while because we've got schools still producing children who will grow up to be perpetuators of this ideology for at least 20 to 30 years. So we're looking at least a 20 to 30 year period, I would say, if everything turned around tomorrow, for this stuff to continue on. So I would say do your best to break off from this society. Realize that the survival of America, every 369 million people in America, or whatever we're at, is not comparative to the survival of America. America can live on in individual people, individual communities, towns, cities, and that is what we need to realize. Like, if you don't storm the Capitol, don't get Facebook groups talking about, kidnapping Governor Whitmer because you want to save America. That's not necessary. You don't need to do that. Focus on yourself, focus on your family, focus on your own communities, because as we've shown today, folks, everything is fake and the game is rigged against you. I mean, the media, the COVID numbers are all going to be manipulated against you to control you. The numbers have been a lie the whole time. The Facebook overlords, the big tech overlords are watching you, trying to call you white supremacists, trying to restrict your freedoms any way possible. I don't know, honestly, why anybody would want to even operate in this society with all the restrictions and the fakeness going on. But hopefully we can wake a few people up and realize what the real solution here is. And it's not take back the Capitol, storm the Capitol, patriots. Nothing like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes in order to say something, you have to let it die.
There you go. Yeah. And
I mean, case in point, sorry to interrupt, Jeremy. Forest fires. They burn in order to create new life. And for anyone who thinks I'm talking bollocks, look it up.
Yep. No, that's a metaphor that we've provided on this stream before. Just like forests are designed to burn in order to perpetuate, sometimes society needs to fall apart to rebuild a little bit stronger. And with that, I have to say thank you, Kizza, for joining us today on Stereo. I think it was entertaining. Maybe if we can get your wind issues fixed or do it at a better time for you, that would be excellent, because I did enjoy it.
No worries. I'm totally grateful. I do apologize for any wind issues, but like I said, I had to be outside because I didn't want to wake my folks.
Understandable.
Yeah,
it is what,
you're
like
sweet.
4 a.m. over there right now for you, or what?
Just a gentle breeze, but sadly the mic on the phone exaggerates how much wind. It's like a very gentle breeze.
Folks, if you enjoyed the stream, give it a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know the drill. We'll be back here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. PST. And that's all I got for you. We'll see you guys next week. Appreciate all the participation on stereo.
Yep. Good night, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you later. And yeah, keep your nose clean.
Auf Wiedersehen.